Hi, and welcome to this program about what we can do in our Lubbock gardens in October. I'm Betsy, a Lubbock Master Gardener and friend of the public library. October brings a welcome change in the weather. Both plants and people are enjoying pleasantly warm days and cooler nights. Many plants are producing seeds, and here behind me is a Texas red yucca with blooms and seed pods. Behind the yucca, there's a four-winged saltbush with pale yellow blooms just starting to go to seed. It helps me to keep plant, prepare, and plan in mind for October. As long as we're mindful of the temperature, we can plant. Certain plants thrive in these temperatures. There is harvesting to be done and preparation for winter weather, as well as planning and dreaming about future gardens. Here in Lubbock, air temperature below 32 degrees will kill the foliage of your heat-loving summer plants, but the ground usually does not freeze. So we can seed carrots, onions, kale, beets, chard until the middle of this month, and they'll grow into the winter with just a little protection from freezing air temperature. Remember that the average frost date for the first frost in Lubbock is at the end of this month. Now on the left here is kale I planted in mid-September. You can see how well it germinated in the warm soil. Now that true leaves are developing, it needs to be thinned. The container on the right has red-stemmed chard in the foreground, a broccoli seeding in the middle, some pansies, and the dark-leafed plant in the background is kale. This container gets plenty of light, yet it's sheltered on an open porch. These plants will grow through the fall and produce an edible harvest. Cool season vegetables need protection from frost. The raised bed in the background has some leafy green, probably kale, and heads of cabbage, and that bed is outfitted with supports for a hoop cover. The bed in the foreground has a lightweight cover. Notice the bricks holding the cover in place, important with our winds. You'll hear opinions about whether a cover should be cloth or plastic. It really depends on your plants and your situation. For example, cloth allows air circulation, while plastic traps heat and moisture. When the temperature dips below 32 degrees, I have used lightweight plastic drop cloths or even an old worn bed sheet to be row covers. October's the time to plant garlic, leeks, and bunching onions for a bountiful spring harvest. You can order varieties of garlic, but I plant bulbs that I save or get from farmers markets. You just need to be sure that any commercial garlic has not been treated to prevent sprouting during the transportation to the store. Break the bulb apart and plant the cloves with the root end down. Pansies. They provide color in the fall, sometimes in the winter, and they often revive in the early spring with more color. Prepare the soil by digging in some compost or soil conditioner. Ease the plant out of the container, rough up the roots just a little bit, and place the plant level with the soil, about 5 or 6 inches apart. Other colorful perennials available in the fall include a succulent, as in the other picture, called Autumn Joy. Perennials benefit from occasional dividing. Here's some examples. At the top, Liriope and Iris. Replant divisions to fill out your own garden or share plants with others. It's important to clean your tools so that you don't spread any plant diseases. You can dip digging tools in a bucket of water with a splash of bleach, or wipe the blades with an antibacterial wipe. Dry the tools when you finish to avoid rust. Trees, shrubs, and woody vines need to be planted now. They'll establish a root system during the cooler months to prepare them for our hot, dry summer. Plant them at the same depth they were in the pot, or check on the recommended depth for bare root plants. Don't fertilize them now because you really don't want to encourage above ground growth. On existing trees and shrubs, you can prune out dead wood, but it's really best to wait until the plant is fully dormant for a deeper pruning. Dormancy is a natural response to the cooler temperatures. It's the way plants conserve energy during adverse growing conditions. Don't you love spring tulips and other bulb plants? Late October and November is the best time to plant, but the best selection of bulbs is available in garden stores now. So as you acquire them, store them till the end of the month in a cool, dark place. You can even pre-chill them in the vegetable crisper of the refrigerator. I've had success with early spring bulbs here, and often see their blooms in January and February. Daffodils return year after year in my garden, but I've not had much success with tulips. I like an informal look, so I just toss bulbs over the garden and plant them where they fall. A general rule is to plant them in holes 2 to 3 times deeper than the size of the bulb. You can work a little bone meal into the soil to boost root development. Now to review, there's still planting to do in October. Cool weather vegetables and colorful plants, new trees and shrubs. It's an ideal time to divide perennials. Begin thinking about spring bulbs. And then there are some other things that you can do in the garden during this changing season. Your summer vegetables may have revived as the temperature got cooler, but they'll end their production when the temperatures drop below 32. Eventually, frost will kill those annual plants. When the first freeze is forecast, harvest the last of your veggies, including green tomatoes. Tomatoes will ripen inside, and there are loads of recipes for green tomatoes. Harvest winter squash and store it in a cool, dark place. 50 to 55 degrees is ideal to keep it for use over several months. And it's time to harvest the fruit of the prickly pear cactus. The purple pods are called tunas, a Spanish word for fruit of a plant. Be sure to ask permission if you go foraging for prickly pear tunas on someone else's property. Floydada is the pumpkin capital of the world, and it's worth a trip to see pumpkins of all sizes, shapes, and colors. Pecan harvest begins this month, if you're lucky enough to have a tree on your property. For best quality, pick up the nuts promptly, shell them, and store them in a freezer. The leaves on the deciduous trees are beginning to change color and falling. Once the limbs of the trees are bare, you can clearly see the structure of the tree and determine if any pruning is going to be necessary on the dormant plants. Check also for healthy bark. Notice nests in the tree and determine if any maintenance is going to be needed. The leaves that fall with dormancy and frost are gardener's gold. Here's a summary of garden tasks during this change of season. We've talked about some of these. Notice that it's time to bring houseplants inside and store pots so they won't be cracked by freezing and thawing. Clean dirt off your tools with water and make sure to dry them well. Then rub them with a light coat of WD-40 or linseed oil to prevent rust. Your tools will be all ready for spring. The change of season also means fall lawn care, and you can find information on the Lubbock Master Gardener website. In this article, there are links to Texas AgriLife bulletins for even more information. And here we are, Gardener's Gold. You may not have the bounty of leaves shown here. Leaves are the organic matter that build the fertile soil in forests, and we can take advantage of the leaves that we do have here in Lubbock. One option is simply to mow the leaves and use them as a thin mulch. Notice there's no grass catcher on this mower. The leaves are cut up by the blades and fall back on the grass. This option depends on the type of grass you have and the compactness of the soil. You might water the lawn after the leaves are chopped up by the mower to help those leaves begin decomposing. I prefer to leave the grass catcher on the mower and collect leaves. In this picture, there's a mixture of leaves and grass chopped up together, a good mix of brown and green for composting. Notice this technique of lifting the front end of the mower and then lowering it down onto the tall grass. That's a particularly useful technique if you're mowing a big pile of leaves that you've raked out of beds. Store the chopped leaves in plastic bags and then spread them as a mulch in the perennial beds and under trees and shrubs. Layer them over your resting vegetable garden as a soil conditioner. The leaves will break down with winter moisture, and the chopped leaves can be added in layers to your compost through the year ahead. I collect as many bags of chopped leaves as I can, asking neighbors and lawn service workers for leaves, so none of this organic gold ends up in the landfill. These pictures were taken last October at the Texas Tech Garden and Greenhouse. These demonstration gardens are a feast for the senses, and the varieties are labeled so you can make notes of plants that you want to incorporate into your garden. Here you see lantana on the left, and in the containers on the right, there are several varieties of coleus. Well, keep in mind planting, preparing, and planning for October. And join us each Friday this month for more Lubbock gardening ideas. Happy gardening!